Well, let's get started. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to our first webinar as GlobalLink Strings. In case you haven't noticed already, we've rebranded. We're still the same team and the same platform, just with a new face. With that little note out of the way, I'm excited to kick off our webinar to cover the newest features that help streamline screenshot review. Okay. Um, with my name is Aisha Amin, and I'm one of the customer success managers at GlobalLink Strings. My job is to help customers use the platform effectively and efficiently, and I'll also help users learn the ins and outs. I'll assist with any issues that may come up, find workarounds, any help you need while localizing projects. If you ever run any questions, run any problems, anything at all, I'm always here to help. Joining me today is Christian Stanka, the CEO and co-founder of GlobalLink Strings. He'll be sharing some best practices later on, and he'll also help us with a smoothly run webinar, and he'll help collect any questions that may come up as we progress through the content for today. All right. So with introductions out of the way, we do have a pretty packed agenda for today, and we're going to cover all things screenshot review. So first, we're going to start with why teams can benefit from screenshot review. Then we'll move into some screenshot review best practices. Christian has compiled a highlight of best practices to share with you all. Next, we'll cover changes to our recently updated screenshot UI and where things have shifted and moved around to. Then I'll show off the new screenshot side-by-side view. That one allows users to easily compare translated screenshots across languages. Then we'll get into screenshot fallback for languages that don't have translated screens yet. Next, we'll get into screenshot verification and how you can use that to manage your overall screenshot review process. And finally, I'll show you guys the screenshot verification rules, and that's going to help automate review workflows that can often feel quite tedious. Then last but not least, Christian will share some details around new screenshot related features that are coming soon. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of content for us to cover today. So as we progress through the webinar, please do add your questions to the chat. Christian and I are going to collect them as we go along, and we've reserved the last 10 minutes or so for questions. Now, if you miss anything, if you've got an urgent call or email, it's absolutely no worries. We're recording this webinar, and then after the live session, probably later this afternoon, maybe first thing tomorrow, I'm going to send out a link to the recording, and I'll also send out links to helpful screenshot review documentation. So now that we've covered our agenda, let's get into why screenshot review. So screenshot review can be a pretty vital step in your localization workflows. It can help ensure high quality, user-friendly, and culturally appropriate localized software and apps. With screenshot review, reviewers can check for translation accuracy based on context. They can identify any potential layout issues, and really they can help ensure overall usability of that app or software. Screenshot review plays a pretty important role when it comes to delivering a polished and localized UI that's ready for global markets. With GlobalLink Strings, screenshots can be captured and shown in the project dashboard directly in the editor. Those screenshots are assigned to the set of strings or text automatically. You can even organize the screenshots in a way that actually matches your user experience from the app or software. So then you can navigate through all those screenshots, or the reviewers can navigate through all those screenshots, essentially replicating the app experience or software experience. This really lets them go through your app directly in GlobalLink Strings. So they're working in the editor and reviewing content all in the same place. This can help speed up review processes while minimizing the setup and communication needs for screenshot review. The features that we're going to highlight today help reviewers quickly complete their review, and it also helps project managers better manage and keep an eye on the overall process. But before we move into features, I'm going to pass it over to Christian to share some screenshot review best practices.
Thank you very much, Aisha. So yeah, the screenshot best practices, put them into a couple of different steps to kind of talk, generally speaking, about why screenshot review and how to kind of where to start with it and why we start as screenshots, so to speak. And then some more GeoString specific steps and kind of how we can help along the way. So often when we get into use case, into the setup for screenshot review, there might not be a screenshot automation yet or a way to kind of efficiently capture the screenshots at that time. And we often hear the proposal, why not use instead on-device testing, or we have an emulator. And while we also support these workflows and they can be employed for the use case in which you would also employ screenshot review itself to kind of, with the best possible context, review the translation and make sure they are on point. The difference or the main issue with that is that for both an emulator or for on-device testing, first of all, you would need the person who is the tester, who is the linguist, the reviewer, to know how to navigate the application. That's a barrier in itself because that might be rather complex and might then also require from you to create these testing plans, user guides for the person to kind of walk through the application. And then the emulator or application is obviously not connected one-on-one with GL strings, meaning you still have to kind of find the strings that you're seeing on the screen while you're kind of going through it. So you have kind of two screens to look at, following the navigation. That alone kind of needs a lot of ramp up time. But then additionally, once you've done the first round of review and kind of spot the bugs and then need to do a second round, um, even though maybe on the first 5, 6, 7 screens there might nothing be wrong with those, you still have to navigate through them. You cannot jump to a specific place in the application as a regular user, or even with most emulators, there's no way to kind of jump to a specific screen compared to websites where you can maybe just have a link and jump there. With applications, you would need very heavy instrumentation in the app itself called deep linking. Um, and the way to kind of access that deep linking to kind of jump from one screen to a specific other one. Whereas with screenshots, once you have them, and we will see how in the editor that works as well, once they are on the platform, you can just view these. Let's say round one, you see all 100 screens of the application. In round two, you just need to review the 20 that had some issues that you fixed in round one. So with screenshots, you can just watch, like, go directly to those 20 that are in scope for that subsequent round of reviews. So it can be way more efficient, need no knowledge of the application whatsoever, and can focus on just the amount of work that actually needs reviewing without having to look at anything that you already had a look before. So in that way, screenshots are way more efficient, while we can also structure them to kind of follow the app user experience using features that we have. So we have all the benefits that an emulator and on-device has, plus the additional not being impacted by having to kind of walk through the whole application. So I already mentioned the best way and the most efficient way, obviously, is having automation in place. Having to capture screenshots manually from an app, uploading them manually can be a lot of work if you try to reach 100% coverage of the application, or as close to as 100% as possible. And then doing that for multiple languages is very inefficient, is very cumbersome. So any kind of automation to capture screenshots is highly recommended, and that can be integrated. Whatever that setup might be that you have, it often comes from the perspective of test automation, that basically navigates the application automatically. Maybe you have something like or know something like that for integration tests and just viability tests and just runs through the application, and that kind of testing can be instrumentized to then also capture screenshots, and then further, if it does that, take these screenshots, upload them to Applanga, and tag them with metadata, all kinds of additional magic that we can do once we have that. But that's the most crucial part, having that kind of automation that goes through the app and finds all the screens. If you have anything like that, great, we can extend it, we can integrate with that. If you don't have something yet, we can help with that as well, meaning we have great examples on our GitHub repository that we can also share interested to kind of see how you could set something like that up and how it would be integrated. And then further, if you say, but I don't have the manpower for it, TransPerfect actually has a team dedicated and specialized to write test automation scripts for you. And obviously they can then work also with us to do the integration as well. So you kind of can outsource the whole process. Is that something where you say, don't have the manpower, I really need it, come talk to us and we can set it up for you. So those are the basics, and with that out of the way, for the next step is kind of how to integrate and some kind of high level things that we would recommend. There are many different ways, and it obviously depends on how your application, how your whole environment and everything is set up. But our default recommendation for a framework is Appium, which is the testing automation framework. It's a open source kind of industry standard framework for this kind of test automation. It's also the framework our internal testing team would use. And that's that framework where we have an out-of-the-box integration with, meaning there's the least effort of integrating this framework with GL strings, meaning you just download our integration into Appium. You just write the script that navigates the application and install that little additional script that connects your local testing setup with Applanga, and then it does all the steps that you would have to do in maybe a more custom framework yourself, saying like, okay, there's a screen, here's a name, upload it here, this had this language, these had the strings, all of that is done by Appium itself. So that's highly recommended to do that. But if you use another framework, the whole Appium integration we have is open source, also in our GitHub repository. If that's kind of a starting point for you, say, okay, how does it work with Appium? How is that comparable to my framework, maybe? And if you have any questions about that, obviously also come to us. We can work with you to see, like, hey, this is how we did it at Appium. This is how we can maybe transfer that knowledge to another automation framework doing the same thing. Then for the integration with GL strings directly for getting the app content to the platform, back to the testing automation framework, kind of like letting the strings flow from your app to us, getting the translations back into the application, getting the translations back after a round of review to regenerate the screenshots. For all of that, we recommend a combination of CLI and API, or only the API. CLI makes it easier because it provides like the complete string files, so you don't have to kind of get the raw API response and maybe package it or transform it to your local string file format. However, the CLI is limited to certain standardized string files. So if you have something completely custom, the CLI probably doesn't support it yet. Then you have the choice to use the CLI, use some, for example, of the JSON or XML formats we support, and then locally transform them, or use the API with the raw JSON response that it has, and then transform that into your files. The API has the additional benefit of not only being able to transport the string content itself, but it also has many additional features that already go towards the next point of automating as many steps as possible, meaning you can do a lot of checks and additional actions through the API itself. So for example, there could be webhooks set up that inform your capturing automation to say like, hey, now everything for French is reviewed. All screens are set to verified. All strings are set to accepted, or whatever the workflow kind of defines. And that can then restart the screenshot automation automatically. So there's basically, from the moment you push the content to the platform, over translations and even multiple rounds of screenshot review, nothing that you would have to do manually. The translations are produced, they come back to the platform, the automation detects that there are new translations there, generates screenshots, the first review round runs through the automation again, detects, okay, now the review round is done, let's recapture screens, and that all of that can happen automatically. Additionally, you can request translations, you can set additional workflow status, you can read comments, like anything that maybe you as the person on the client side need to know or need to interact with as part of the review round, check something that is rejected because that's maybe developer feedback where screen layout has to be changed, get a notification that everything is done, a certificate has been uploaded, attached to a certain order. All of that can be automated. Obviously, that's the ultimate end state, but we for sure recommend to get kind of the highest return on investment and the shortest time frame that you can get for going through a screenshot review, especially keeping in mind that's maybe something you do repetitively across maybe like multiple studies that you run, that you have to repeat that process again and again. So wherever there's repetition and with manual work, there's a chance for automation and kind of gaining time advantages, and then obviously being quicker to market, being done with a review faster than you've been before. That's obviously always an advantage. That's our best practices on the GeoString specific integration and setup side. And we have examples and documentation for all of that. And then there are some specific features that I want to point out that on top of just what I just talked about, make GeoString specifically specialized for that. So first was the Appium integration. I already talked about that. We have comparable integrations with other frameworks that are not like testing frameworks, but more integrations directly, for example, with mobile apps or with string file automation CDCI pipelines. But the Appium integration in this scenario, for example, what it does is not only does it take the screenshots, it also uploads them directly. It captures metadata of the screenshot itself that helps it to identify which string IDs are used for the text shown on the screen, so that that matching, which already is the next point, right? That it's already baked into the Appium integration. We have that feature also for other integration and also for kind of for you to use in any kind of custom integration that you would write, because that's one of the most crucial points. Many people can actually generate screenshots, and what happens with that is that they end up in so-called screenshot reports, which is Word files or PDFs that have best case scenario, the source, so the original application screenshot next to a translated version of the screenshot, but it's still kind of quote unquote dumb paper. So somebody who has to review it has to have that PDF open, maybe in another tab has a JSON file open, and then has to put in their best guess of what are they seeing on that screenshot and what might it refer to. Maybe there's naming convention. We have seen many ways of how that can be improved, but still it's not the most efficient way to kind of connect a string reliably to a screenshot. But with the integrations that we offer, we can do that matching automatically, instrumenting the text itself a little bit to embed the ID into the text, and then our integration reading the ID out of the text itself and having 100% match rate. There's no guesswork, there's no additional work to do after the screenshotting part is there. The moment the screenshot is taken, we know which IDs belong to that screenshot, and we use that information then also to present the screenshot and the text together, which we will see in the editor and the GL-strings interface in a moment. And then last but not least, screenshot hashes and metadata. Hashes is something that we added a couple of months ago because what we have seen is that oftentimes screens in subsequent rounds differ, sometimes only very slightly, sometimes not at all. And then if you have really different screens, which goes to the metadata, for example, you have a variant for version 1, version 2, version 3, let it be maybe round 1, round 2, round 3 of screenshot review. And then you have to kind of verify the screenshots. But if it's the same screen again from different rounds, like why do you need to verify it again? Or if it really just differs by a small amount, would you want to rely on the linguist kind of visually comparing two screenshots to kind of make sure these are the same or these are different? So what we did is we create a hash, which is basically kind of, we take the screenshot and generate a unique ID out of the screenshot data, so out of the pixels, and say, if a new screenshot is uploaded, compare these two hashes with each other. And that gives a very, very good estimation of, is that screenshot the same or not? And then based on that, we can have some kind of business logic on the platform that you can also configure to say, if a screenshot was previously uploaded in another round, but it's the same as the previous one, set it to unverified. Or if somebody uploads for the same round again and again, if it's the same screenshot again, just skip it. So we can kind of also surface what has changed if something has changed. The system itself kind of knows it. We don't have to rely on the linguist kind of catching it. The system itself will mark up if a screen is different from the previous one. And these are some kind of integral features that kind of work in the backend, work within the integrations, kind of hidden to the end user, but makes their life as a PM who manages the translation review rounds, and specifically also as a linguist who doesn't have to put in any guesswork. He just sees the screenshots together with the strings, knows if there's a new one or an already verified one, and can kind of work with that. A lot of quality of life. And then again, all to the benefit of cutting down the time spent in a review round, in preparation of a review round. That's what we're mainly focusing on. And that was my little overview of screenshot integration, best practices, and features. Back to you, Aisha.
Thank you, Christian. Okay, let's see. All right, so now that Christian has shared his highlights of screenshot review best practices, we can finally take a look at some of our updates as well as the new features on GlobalLink Strings. So if you guys will bear with me just a second, let me pull up my project. Alrighty, here we go. Okay, so I've got a screenshot review demo project. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna pop into, let's do French. Okay. We've talked about this before, I think, but I just want to show you a couple of ways to get to a specific screenshot. Of course, you can click the screenshot thumbnail. Let's get another example. You can also click on the tag name. And then, of course, the easiest way is going to be from the screens list. We can select our first screen here. Right. So with the screenshot view open, we can go ahead and take a tour of where all the screenshot options have moved or shifted around to. I'm going to start in the top corner and then work our way down. So first, we've got our screenshot language dropdown. This will let you switch between the different languages where you have translated screenshots available in the project. Next, we have our variant information. This used to be a button down here. We've moved it up here and kind of condensed everything, so it makes it a little bit easier. We still have all the same variant information for a given screen. You'll see the language, the version. You can click if you have multiple versions and switch between the two, right? We've got the device that the screenshot was taken on. You can see I had a manual upload versus something that came from Figma. You have the operating system that the screenshot was taken on, and then you have the resolution. This blank you can ignore for now. That is for a now defunct possible feature, so that's going away soon. But moving on, we've got our tag category. So if you are using tag categories to keep up with and sort through all of your tags, then you'll actually see that tag category here. You'll see the date that the screenshot was created. For PMs, you can come in here and add a new variant, and you can also edit the existing variant, if you need to change any of the strings or anything like that. Alrighty. Let's see what's next. So moving over to the right, we've got a couple of ways to adjust the screenshot view panel, you can fit to width to get a better idea. You can fit to height, which is what we started with. And there's also a full screen mode. If we wanted to zoom in a little bit more, we can. This one some teams find really helpful, especially if you're looking at like terms of use or something like that, something where we've got a lot of text. Just makes it easier for you to scroll through the entire thing and get a pretty good eye of what's going on. Okay. Okay. Last but not least, we've got the settings up here. This is what's going to toggle between the all strings view, which is going to show you all strings in a given project, and the per screen view, which is just going to show you the strings that are associated with this given screen. Now, when you're in the per screen view, you'll also see these previous and next buttons, and this just lets you navigate through the app, or excuse me, the screenshots, the same way that you might through an actual app. And once it's grayed out, it means you've reached the end of the line. Right. So those are the updates to the existing screens menu, the things that have moved around. So let's dive into the new screenshot features. So the big one is going to be the screenshot side-by-side view. So when we're doing translations, obviously context is going to be incredibly important to help viewers compare translated screenshots against source screenshots. We added the new side-by-side view, and you'll find that in this top corner over here. By default, when the screenshot menu is open, it's going to be that single screen like we see here. But if we click here, we've got our side-by-side view enabled. Oh, whoops. Let me see. I was playing around with this earlier. There we go. I think I might have messed up my project. Hold on, let's refresh. Okay, now I'll try this. There we go. Hmm. Let's see. I'm not sure why it's getting stuck on French. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. So the screenshot viewing options act independently. So you can change the view for each pane, whatever you need. You can scroll independently. And then when you are navigating, if we go to next screen, it's going to use both at the same time. And then same going backwards. And then obviously this is quite large. It might not be easy for you to edit anything. So if you screw it over and you click here, you'll actually see the highlighted string on the screenshot. Okay. Now, as we move through the UI, you might have noticed this mark as verified down below. And that's going to be our next new feature, which is screenshot verification. As part of the screenshot review process, you can now designate screenshots as verified or unverified. Now, keep in mind, this option is only going to be available when the selected language in the editor, so French Canada, matches what you have in your screenshot, French Canada again. This is also only available for target screenshots, so for French, but it's not going to be available for your source. And then lastly, screenshot verification is language specific, meaning if you verify a screenshot in French, it's reviewed, it's accurate, and you've designated it as verified, the verification is only going to apply to the French screenshot. It's not going to apply to any other translated screenshots until you go through the verification process with those other languages. So I can mark as verified. Let's see. Let's say this one's changed. I want to unverify it. Let's go back to the first one. Mark as verified. Now, if you want to quickly see which ones have been verified, you'll actually be able to tell by this tiny green check mark that's over the screenshot thumbnail in the screens list. But there's also a filter option. So you can quickly find where you've got verified screenshots or you don't have any target verified screenshots. And then you can use some of these other ones as well, where you've got a source screenshot available or no source screenshot available, target screenshot available, or no target screenshot available. I do want to show you this one real quick. And this gets us into our screenshot fallback. So in this case, I don't have any translated screenshots for French. So by default, it's going to show me the English screenshot. Right. Now, screenshot review and verification is typically tied to translation statuses on GlobalLink Strings. So let's go back to one of our other ones. So for example, as reviewers are going through, they might mark these as accepted, make any changes as necessary. Oops, I don't want to reject that one, just kidding. Accepted, or they can do it in bulk up top. But that can be a little bit tedious. So to help automate what can be a manual process, we created a new feature for screenshot rules at the team level. So I'm going to use the breadcrumbs to navigate back to my team page. And then I'm going to scroll to the very bottom panel for workflow statuses and rules. And then I'm going to select the screenshot rules tab. Right. These rules can be really helpful for project managers who want to automate more of the screenshot review process. There's two basic rules to start with, and these help manage screenshots that are either verified or unverified. Okay, so this first rule right here, this defines which workflow status must be applied to all the translations associated with the screenshot in order to designate the screenshot as verified. This rule helps ensure that all of the translations for a given screen have been reviewed before the screenshot can actually be designated as verified. You can select whichever status you need from this dropdown, including any custom statuses that you may have created for the team. Accepted. Right. So the second rule, this one will automatically mark a screenshot as unverified when it's replaced or updated, meaning you have a new variant uploaded to Applanga, sorry, GlobalLink Strings. This rule is perfect for teams with multiple rounds of screenshot review, and the second rule is a little bit more customizable, so it can be expanded to fit the needs of your team's specific translation and screenshot review workflows. So with the second rule enabled, there are more customizable rule options. So the first sub rule, excuse me, the first subrule allows a verified screenshot to keep its verification status when an identical variant is uploaded to Applanga. So this is helping to prevent your reviewers from re-reviewing something that's already verified and is accurate and exactly what it needs to be. Right. With this second subrule, you can get a little bit more specific. You can specify that the rule automatically updates statuses for translations associated with newly uploaded screenshot variants, and that allows reviewers to quickly find and review new updates to screenshots. So for example, we've got when a translation has a rejected workflow status and the assigned screenshot is updated, then the workflow status is going to update to needs review. You can even create additional rules to cover the translations with all kinds of statuses. Right. Okay, let me double check my checklist, but I think that's everything I plan to show you on the dashboard. So let's switch back to our PowerPoint. So Christian can share what screenshot-related features are coming soon.
Yes, thank you, Aisha. So what's up? What's coming? What's on the horizon? First, we are working on an AI screenshot automator or AI screenshot crawler. Since we often run into the challenge that is indeed quite a lot of effort to set up screenshot automation if there is nothing yet. And these scripts always have to be adjusted, rewritten. So what we're doing is developing a little bot that kind of scales through the application. You can give them information like if you encounter a login, use this credentials. If you encounter certain fields with certain names, please input this kind of data. So you can give them like a little checklist to be able to go through any kind of roadblocks that might be there. And then it will create itself a script that scales through the application, trying to cover as many screenshots as possible compared to the string file that is available, to basically go through it until it founds everything that is in the application and create screenshots and such. And then from there, maybe that's already good enough to cover most of the application. But if not, then the resulting script can also be adjusted. So kind of helping people to get a head start if they have nothing yet with the AI automation crawler to generate screenshots as much as possible. Obviously, this will go through several rounds of iteration to get better in its kind of ways, and it will get better as more application it can basically run through. But it's maybe a good start to get good coverage or get like from 0 to 70% coverage and then work on the 70 to 100%. In our experience, obviously that's often the most effort anyways to kind of get up to 100, but maybe we can already help you to get close to that with this new feature and get started. Then we are working on a feature to support translation certificates. So right now there's already workflows that allow uploading translation certificates to the platform and storing them there, but they are currently still connected to translation requests. So a request is made on the platform, that request is translated, produced, delivered back, then reviewed, and then at the end of the process, the certificate is attached to this translation request. But with the new translation certificate feature, we will have a dedicated section in the project settings to upload translation certificates. And these certificates, when they are uploaded to a certain scope, let's say these 5 languages have been certified for these 8 questionnaires or 5 features, then we use the workflow status feature and the comment feature to kind of set a certain workflow status that indicates for every translation if it's certified, if it has that status and it's certified, and also allowed to set certain metadata fields of the certificate, like certificate number, sponsor number, whatever else there might be, as part of the comment, which allows you to retrieve the content based on certified status and have a certified reference on every translation, which is interesting maybe for a check to say like only download everything that is certified and also get me the certificate number, and then via an API also download the certificate itself. If you always say like, hey, if I make a release, it needs to be certified, capture everything is certified, get the certificate, bundle it all, archive it on my side for the audit trail, and then publish only that stuff with the next release that is actually certified. Obviously, that also enables the whole library use case, right? Like where you say, I have a big set of all my studies, of all my questionnaires inside a GlobalLink Strings project. And now I want to, for every study, not recertify everything, but just use everything that's certified, put it into the next study. And now I can kind of manage that, all the questionnaires in different versions with translations, screenshots, and the certificate status all kind of accessible to be consumed by a study management system to kind of pull just these 5 questionnaires with the certified translations, put it in an app, and I have a digital audit trail and the certificates all in the same platform. And then finally, automated AI LQA, so translation and screenshots, automated LQA, the linguistic quality assessment, which just means that an AI scans the translation based, for example, for translation on the quality score, and then compares it to an existing translation memory, existing glossary, and tries to improve the quality score of the translation. And for screenshots, going over the screenshot and comparing it to the source and seeing if, for example, basic things like the text is overspilling or there's English bleed, to kind of have an additional check, or if you, for example, not in a regulated environment where you have to review, but you're more in a regular app use case environment where you say, I don't even have the resources to go through all of my languages and all of my screens. That might help to kind of do a first pass and surface only those who might have issues. Obviously, that might be especially interesting then if we combine point 1, point 3, so that we have a way to automatically generate screenshots of the application to a certain amount of coverage, probably never 100%, but better than nothing, right? Like maybe 60, 70, 80%. Create these screenshots and then let AI LQA run over the screenshots to then surface maybe for the developers only those words. English bleed, where there is formatting issues, overlapping text, concatenation, all of that, without having to put any manual work into it. And that are features that we hope to help this whole process and kind of get the benefits out of screenshot review, even though you might not have the people in the language to be able to review them, but having the AI maybe find the most gruesome things automatically for you. Yeah, that's what's on the agenda for next quarters and also next year, obviously. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Christian. Okay, so that's all I have on the agenda for our webinar today. I know we covered a lot of information today. So now I'm going to open the floor for questions. I think I may have seen one or two come in through the chat.
I had one in the chat and already covered it.
Oh, okay, perfect. Any other questions while we're all on our webinar together? Okay, I will take that as a no. With no more questions for today, thanks everyone for your time on our screenshot review webinar. If you're like me, you need to ruminate on everything you've seen today and you come up with questions later in the day, you can always contact us via our website support chat, or you can email us directly at support@applanga.com. Yes, it is staying at applanga.com for now, but we'll definitely communicate to you if it ever or when it switches to support@globallinkstrings.com. We also have regularly updated documentation at globallinkstrings.com/docs. Much more specifically, you can learn about the screenshot review features we talked about today under the screenshot subsection of our documentation. It will take some time for the recording to render and for me to upload it to YouTube, but a little later today or tomorrow morning, you'll receive a follow-up email from me with a link to the webinar recording, as well as links to that documentation I was talking about. And with that, thank you guys so much for your time today, and I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you, everyone.